Hello again.
Hello, mate.
You all right?
Mate, I'm very well. I'm living the dream. Thank you very much.
Good. Well, I've got a thought I wanted to share with you in this one.
Excellent.
Right. I was consuming content by a very famous ad guy called Dave Trott,
Yes,
who's old and cantankerous, even older and more cantankerous than we are
I
about
love that.
marketing and
I love
advertising,
that.
which is lovely. And he said, or he was championing the idea that marketing has become a bit more convoluted, right? It's easy to create a very convoluted funnel when
Yeah.
people aren't as complicated as that. So he used an example of one day when he got into advertising, he asked his mum why she always buys Cadbury's chocolate and not other chocolate in the shop. And her answer, he felt represented most people, was, well, you see it everywhere, it's got to be good, right? And that's the bit I want to discuss. Like, the more aware or the more seen you are, the more likely you are to
Yeah.
be remembered, right? When people want the solution or having the problem that your product or service solves, right? You want to be remembered. You've got to be remembered. You've got to be in the game to play
Yeah.
it, right? You've got to be in there. And therefore, that is the most important thing. If you're not in the game, you can't win it, right? If you're not remembered by the people you've seen, you can't remember it.
Yeah, and I think there's two things at play here. I think, kind of number one, the big one is consistency. Most people aren't consistent with their marketing or kind of anything. Most people binge market. They kind of do stuff there. People that turn up, day in, day out, week in, week out, consistent stuff, they always win because part of it is that marketing by osmosis. They get seen, they get remembered, it kind of gets in, it's there. But I think also it is that I think as a kind of a group of people, we've kind of forgotten stuff. And I've got a talk that I do where I basically talk about, what you've forgotten is more important than what you think you know. And actually I don't know, that old school obviousness of marketing is something that people don't do anymore. And I remember that my old man is a very astute guy. And when he ran a business, and he used to kind of talk. We used to talk a lot kind of about business stuff when I was much younger. And he kind of say, look, there are two shops side by side on a Saturday morning. One says we open Saturdays, the other one doesn't. That's where the queue is. The queue, people are going to the one that opens. And again, this kind of harks back to the time when most shops didn't open Saturdays. But it was that obvious thing. And I think people get so carried away with all the crazy stuff that they can do, they forget that kind of that cast iron obvious thing of what is it that they do. And I think a great way to look at this is, look at people's websites. Websites only ever need to do two things. They have to say, when someone lands, they need to know without question, what is it that you do? And are you any good at it? There are only those two things that your website and probably any bit of marketing needs to do. But actually, you've got these sites with all these fancy stuff and these bits and bobs and this, and it's all kind of going on. It's like people will look at it and they don't know what you do. And people can't buy what they don't understand. Yet most people this site are so kind of highbrow, they've forgotten this, they've forgotten this basic thing of, look, show up day in, day out, but tell people what is it that you do. Cadbury's know what they're doing by being around. And yes, they've got to do all sorts of clever and cool and that sort of stuff. But, it is that consistency of being in and around the right people again and again and again. That's huge. And the great thing is that can be done really easy, pretty much on autopilot, which means you're ticking that, that first key box. And then it gives you the time and the space because that's already happening. It gives you the time and the space to try and do some of that kind of clever stuff. But I think you're right, mate. I think kind of, people have forgotten this somewhere.
They've forgotten the you hit a good point there. They're very action and conversion focused without doing the stuff at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
People want a coffee before they choose a Starbucks, right? They go, I want a coffee, right? And they choose a Starbucks. That maybe they prefer a Starbucks, but if there's a Nero's and a Pret within 100 meters and Starbucks is across town, you've got to be a very big fan of Starbucks to walk past the other two, right? People just want a coffee. They want a quick thing. They want top of the funnel stuff. You can educate and inform and inspire and create lovely content funnels if you like. bit later on, but tackle the simple stuff first, right? Make sure you're front of mind when people come to make a choice.
And again, it's so many great examples of it where, just consistently showing up. I mean, I'm on too many lists, but there are some lists that I'm on where I get an email every day. And you know what? I read some of them, not all of them, but it's there. And again, and I know when I want this thing, I know where they are to go. And again, it's got to be done well. It's got to be done carefully. It can't be done in an irritating way. But, and again, with all of this stuff, we see it. There's so many good examples of it. But it is, I don't know, perhaps you said this, kind of a billion times, but sort the basics out first, get those happening, keep yourself top of mind, and then try and do the more complicated stuff.
Yep, good. I agree. We're agreeing a lot today in the new concise season of strategy sessions.
Maybe it's because we're not next to each other anymore. We can't actually just go, mate, that's stupid. Why on earth are you saying that?
Yeah. Oh, there'll be no bloopers at this rate if we don't do that.
I'm sure we'll find a few.
All right,
probably this bit of it.
Probably that. See you next time.